So you'll excuse me if I look a little bit bleary in the top corner of the screen. We are faced with challenges today in total knee arthroplasty. You've already seen how navigation is trying to address challenges in alignment and balance. We have challenges with trying to achieve low contact stress, conformity and deep flexion, and obviously with patients becoming younger, longevity of the components. We're faced with a bewildering array of designs, from fixed to mobile, and in mobile bearing particularly, in many designs, from those that allow multi-directional movement of the polyethylene to those that only allow monodirectional movement. I think it's important to look at kinematic data on polyethylene to understand why it's important to consider design when you're trying to use a mobile bearing knee replacement. Polyethylene orientates in the principal direction of sliding. This is old data from the 1970s. And the strength of polyethylene is increased parallel to sliding, but is reduced transverse to sliding. If you have multi-directional motion on polyethylene, you will accelerate wear, whereas monodirectional motion will reduce wear. So in a mobile bearing knee, you would like to try and see unidirectional poly stresses, lower contact stresses. You'd like to accommodate the increased internal rotation that you see in flexion for a knee for perhaps better kinematics. And then you have to decide whether to have a PS or a cruciate retaining design, and whether design influences do affect outcome. Not all mobile bearings are the same. You can have a slide and glide, a bumper, pins, locking screws, a rotating platform. But I would draw your attention perhaps to the New Jersey experience and the LCS knee, which established the principles for mobile bearing knee design in a monodirectional design, diffusing shear forces, minimizing contact stress and reducing polyethylene wear, with pretty good results at 20 to 25 years. If you then look at why that happens, it's because you have unidirectional motion patterns which harden the top and underside of the polyethylene bearing surfaces and will reduce wear in vivo. We're also faced with challenges in deep knee flexion. You know that there is increased rotation of the tibia as the knee flexes beyond 90 degrees, and if you have a reduced contact area in these deep positions of flexion, you'll get increased polyethylene wear, and in posterior stabilized designs historically that led to increased spine wear. In a conventional total knee replacement, you may not have enough posterior condyle to accommodate these circumstances at beyond 120 degrees of flexion, and you may get high peak stresses. So let's talk about challenge number one, which is increased rotation of the knee. I think clearly a mobile bearing knee replacement will accommodate this. I've already shown you the LCS. This is some data from 2004 showing you that some mobile bearing knee replacements will only actually allow you a couple of degrees of rotation in vivo. It may be because the center of the pivot's too far anterior in this particular design. It may be due to the constraint of the locking mechanism. It's postulated that it may be due to the formation of fibrous tissue. But what it basically means is that if the mobile bearing tibial insert is fixed or rotates less than the femoral component, then you're going to get similar wear patterns that you'd expect in a fixed bearing knee. As in an LCS or a Sigma RP or an RPF, you're going to allow free rotation. And in fluoroscopic studies, rotation of around 10 degrees is often seen during range of motion in vivo. Challenge number two, therefore, is the reduced contact area in deep flexion. and the increased polyethylene wear that you may see in conventional design. If you compare mobile bearing knee replacement designs, and Phil Sheath was in medical school with me in London while he was working with Bill Walsh in Sydney, did some work on some designs and looked at the contact areas. It's a fairly noisy slide. I'll leave it up for a little while for you. I'm afraid it's black and white as well, which makes things a little bit more exciting. But basically it shows you that there is a wide variation in the surface contact area in these knee replacements when you get up towards 110 degrees of flexion. And the peak contact stresses, as you'd imagine, will go above the threshold of about 20 megapascals, which most polyethylene will tolerate, at around 70 degrees in some knee designs to a 90 degrees in other designs. Shown another way, just comparing three different designed knee replacements, you'll see that the contact stress will go above this magical 20 megapascal level in many designs once you get beyond a certain degree of flexion. I've been using an RPF design. It has extended posterior condyles. The downside is that you take 2 millimeters of extra bone when you do your posterior cut, so that's fairly aggressive bone cutting. But its benefit will show you a low poly wear rate and should hopefully maximize implant survivorship because of this extended posterior condyle design. And you'll see that compared to the conventional Sigma RP, that the RPF has got a significant increase in contact area at over 120 degrees of flexion. And again, shown another way, unfortunately the grading is just up in the corner here, and you'll see that once you get from orange to yellow, that's bad. That's 20 megapascals. That the RPF, you have to go above 150 degrees to get into the white zone. Shown another way, the RP compared to the RPF, when you go into high flexion, the RPF contact stresses rise dramatically, whereas the RPF, will remain low, whereas the RP will rise dramatically at around 130 degrees of flexion. A significant difference. Again, showing the more visually enhanced color coding, you'll see that with a conventional RP in deep flexion, the posterior condyle is going to dig into the back of the polyethylene, whereas with an RPF with a longer posterior condyle, you're going to get less peak stress in deep flexion. So for me, the benefits of a Sigma RPF in contact stress is you optimize the contact area. You've got a mobile bearing design which is freely rotation in a unidirectional pattern. You've got extended posterior condyles, and you've also got something called the third weight-bearing condyle, which I'll now touch on. Because the third challenge in PS design knees is that in deep flexion you get excessive spine wear, and this has been well recognized historically. If you have a conforming cam, then your contact stresses are going to be lowered. And this just shows a picture of a full cam versus a half cam, and you'll see that the peak stresses are much lower in a full cam. The RPF then has got a conforming cam and spine. You'll get an increased contact area in deep flexion. The spine should therefore be protected from excessive wear, and you'll get some accelerated patellofemoral rotation for increased range of motion. So the idea is that this acts as a third condyle, increasing the overall contact area of polyethylene in deep flexion. So in summary, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, mobile bearing knees have vastly improved in vitro wear rates, creating unidirectional poly stresses and improving kinematics in total knee arthroplasty. But deep knee bending poses new challenging design challenges, and there are wide variations in contact stress between implants, as you've seen from Phil Sheath's work. And in my experience and in laboratory data, the RPF performs well at extremes of movement. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Rhys, for the nice presentation. Are there any questions?